to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Open up with public comment. Is there any public comment?
Mike, I would just like to try to get the trust board budget on the agenda for June 17th. I talked to Debbie Kelly earlier, but she said you guys are doing that. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Just as a citizen, Mr. Chairman, Tim Ravendahl, I would just like to ask if the commission has moved any further forward since the planning board canceled their joint meeting because of their quorum, or I'm not sure exactly how that worked, but as an applicant to serve on the board, I'm still kind of waiting on where we're at on that. And I just trying to just make sure I'm staying on top of where we're at.
It has, Tim.
Pardon me?
It has. We'll make recommendations next week.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so I'll go ahead with the minutes here to approve for May 20th, 2019.
I will move to approve those minutes as submitted.
Second?
Second?
Motion been made and second to approve minutes as submitted for May 20th, 2019. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Let's see, mail, DEQ, Stockett Water and Sewer Districts. Department of Commerce Census Bureau. This is a flyer for the 2020 Census New Construction Program. So this is to take in new construction from March of 2018 through March of 2020 for the Census Bureau. I believe Nicole has gone through that. I don't know who we will have monitor all that. Does that be part of Janae's and her replacement?
In the past, we've actually had Nicole do it as community development. That might be something to sit down and talk with her about if she's interested in continuing or if it would fit better somewhere else.
Letters from the Department of Public Health, Human Services, water test for the Silos Recreation Area. Have one claim here to be approved in the amount of $24,376 for the purchase of a Chevy Colorado pickup for the mosquito board.
I'll move that we pay that claim for that purchase of the new pickup.
I'll second that motion.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the purchase of this Chevy Colorado for the mosquito board. Any public? Yes, Tim?
I'm sorry, what year was that?
2017.
To 2017.
I believe it has 5,000 miles on it. Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'm sorry, just a real quick follow-up on that issue. Was the old weed mosquito pickup DOA, is that where we're at, or just
No, I
needing to
think
get
it's-
an upgrade because everything's wore down?
Too big for driving down the alleys and stuff, so I think that they're still gonna use it for some field work, and I think it might also be used by mosquito, or by weed some.
Okay. All right, thank
But
you.
we're still gonna use it, I don't believe we're getting rid of anything.
All right. Thank you for that clarification.
Here's the water and waste digest, that we get every month, the commissioner's office.
Mike, there's another piece of mail that came through last week. We reviewed it, just give you a short update from the silos. It was also from DEQ. We had a follow-up letter. I talked to both Scott and Mary at DEQ about those letters. So we haven't in the past, because the campground is closed, we've sent a letter to DEQ that it's closed and therefore they haven't been doing the testing. So those were both based on the fact that they haven't got testing. They need to have a new test reopen. They just got that, so just to give you an update. It looks like we're totally up to date. As soon as we have one nitrate test, go back.
Okay. So let's see, so we'll go to the commissioner's update. Let's see, I attended the Bill Jiraki's presentation on the public safety budget and the kind of the overall county budget looks, and also the LEPC, and went through a tour of Boone Run and Lightning Barn Road flood areas with Commissioner Folkford, Mary, Sean, what is Sean's last name?
Higley.
Higley, and Corey Davis, look at some flood issues there that Corey's gonna try to address, and discussion on what to do with some roads. That was about it.
Okay, I guess I attended, as with the other commissioners, the sheriff's union negotiation. Had an opportunity to meet with Gildy Clancy, who is Senator Dane's field representative, and talk about all the issues here in our county and things that are going on. And see what, it's always good to talk with her, because she's a direct line to Senator Dane's. Hopefully we can get some, with help with some of the things we need around here, so we'll see how that goes. It was a great conversation, and I look forward to having more of them with her, so. And then also, as Mike mentioned, we're on that flooding tour. And also I did road tour with Mary on our county roads last week as well. They need a lot of work.
I attended the same sheriff's office union negotiations and the presentation with Bill Jiraki. And also had a conference call with the National Justice and Public Safety Committee. One of the topics we hit on was the funding for our victim witness advocate, which has been cut. It's funded from two different sources, one being the Violence Against Women's Act, and that right now is held up in the House, in Congress, and it's attached to a disaster bill. So we're hopeful that that will get out of the House, signed, and then come back to counties to help pay for something that is an essential service without question. Also, there are a number of community events and things happening right now. This little community is just sizzling with activity, and it's pretty exciting what's been going on. So attended a number of those meetings, and just impressed with the caliber of people we have here. We're just very blessed, very lucky. And I think that's about it. Oh, and worked with a couple of department heads on budgets.
One thing that jogged my memory, you mentioned law enforcement, this is for Brandon. So I did talk with Gilda about the COPS program and how it's tied with the sanctuary cities, and so see what we can get something done.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, I bet.
Question, excuse me. You said you had one claim. I turned in 2 claims for the trust board last Wednesday morning. Have you guys seen those, or? I know Michelle's out till.
They may be, this is just an approved claim that was already, that was approved by all three of us that have to, so that, those may be up in the approved pile on Michelle's desk, they haven't been brought down in the
Gotcha.
entire list.
So then they would be brought down next week?
Yeah, I believe I did see those in there.
Okay, thank you.
I think this one was expedited so that we could get a check out to get the truck purchased, because it is such a good deal. Yeah.
We'll move on to our 10:15, the task order for the Department of Health and Human Services contract to be signed. This is the contract from July 1st, 2019 through July 30th, 2026.
I will move to sign that contract. It's a great partnership that our public health office has with DPHHS.
Is there a second?
Can I look at it quick, Mike? I guess I haven't seen that yet.
That's basically the task order for the Department of Health and Human Services, federal grant money.
Gotcha. All right. I'll second the motion.
Motion been made, second, any further discussion? Tim?
Just real quick question, I'm sorry for being a pain, but is there a summary of the financial side of this contract that's going to 2026?
This doesn't have any, but it just says whether or not funding can be cut and reduced by the amount in the federal budget mostly.
Mr. Chairman, I believe annually there comes an amended to it that specifies the amount of money for the
This is just a general contract for 7 years and then each year is covered separately. I don't see any amounts in here for anything that we're responsible for other than basically it's all monthly reports that are due.
Thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Chairman, just was wanting to know if we had anything there for clarification.
Any further public comment? Motion been made and seconded to sign task order for the Department of Public Health and Human Services. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Okay, let's see. Next one is Doug Ellis, County Clerk and Recorder. Grab him.
I would imagine it'll be 2 minutes. Thanks, Brandon.
So while he's gone there, let's talk about that. I know I watched you guys do this last year. What's the reason for doing this?
Doing what?
Forgiveness of delinquent
Oh,
taxes.
I was working on the budget and
Yeah.
kind of in a tunnel. Doug is probably the best to explain it. I don't think I could butcher. That's the best I
Okay.
could do, so
All
I'll
right,
wait till Doug gets here.
okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Brandon.
Here. Few people getting some registration, so they'll be down here shortly.
While we're waiting, if I may ask a couple questions of you guys. We have a couple of things we have to take care of next week. One being budget stuff, and we have a looming deadline. We talked about changing our meeting date to the 6th, because we have the union negotiations on the 5th, and then we're gonna be gone on the 3rd. We have no meeting place on the 6th. This room's gonna be used by the motor vehicle people. I was wondering if you guys were available maybe the 4th instead of the 6th. I couldn't remember if there was something that was scheduled
It's the fourth Monday.
Tuesday.
Tuesday,
Yeah,
fourth.
Monday will be at those district meetings.
Let's see,
Toston Dam meeting,
Dawson Dam meeting.
but that's only in the morning.
Mhm,
Right.
mhm.
Could we
That's fine.
do like 1
We
o'clock?
can do 1 o'clock on the fourth. I'm okay with that.
Is that good with you?
This is for budget stuff,
All the business for next week, so we do, yes, budget stuff. We can keep it short if you want, but we do need to have a discussion with our sanitarian and planning to kind of talk about what that department will look like. We could put that off by a week, it doesn't have to be done next week. So it'd be planning, budget, and really that's about it.
yeah,
Is
I'm
everything
available,
for the
I'm
6th?
available the
I'm
afternoon.
good with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so 1 o'clock will start on the 4th?
Yeah, let's do as much as we can.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Doug, you're up.
I was still working on this, I haven't got my revenue part of it done yet. So, actually waiting on a customer when Brandon came in, so I didn't get this printed or anything. If you want, I can run up and print a copy for all you guys. And
Okay.
We could
I have the
also,
expenditure part, I don't have the revenue part, but
we could also make a copy, scan it so that we
Yeah.
have it electronically and then just include you in that email.
okay,
If
I
you
can bring
want.
you a copy when we're down if you want.
Okay.
I have a couple of items that I raised on this, I'm trying to keep it up here where you guys can see it. The office supplies, last year I had about 3,000, this year I've got 23, that's because of, new election equipment, which we'll get 50% of that back from the state. It's they call it an express vote, it's gonna replace our Automarks. All of our election equipment we got back in 2004. So, our M100s, which are the, kind of the workhorse of the elections, are the ones that everybody puts their ballots in when they go to vote. I would like to start trying to replace one of those a year. The replacement machines are about, well, they're $5,750 for a $5,750 for the machine. It's the least expensive replacement machine for those that they make. But it would work for us. The bigger counties are going with more expensive ones, but this one would be comparable to our M100s. So that's why this line says 22. I put one machine of, one of the, this is the quote that they sent me. And it came to 16 plus the 450, so it came to about 20,000 for that. They're only quoting one of the express votes. We need 4 of them. By law, I have to have one of those in every precinct that we cover. It's for handicap voters.
You have to have those in by the 2020 election?
Yep, yep, they're trying to, well, they've got the state has a grant that they're gonna give to the counties, and
Are we waiting on
that will pay back
Are we waiting on this
50% of
contract to
that.
be signed still?
What's
Are
that?
we still waiting on this contract to be signed with the state?
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So
You haven't heard anything on that
if,
yet?
no, if we don't have to do it by 2020, I'll hold off on it, but it sounds like they're pushing it ahead. So,
So you have no firm
That's-
deadline yet, but this is what you see and that you're gonna need this
Right.
year? Okay.
right, yeah. But that's the one big change in my budget. The other items, I kept close to last year's budget. In fact, the operating supplies, postage, printing, publicity, I kept all those the same. Repair and maintenance, I went up 500 on that because repair and maintenance, the cost of these is a little more than the other ones, and it's just been kind of going in the hole on that, so. Travel I kept the same, election judges I kept the same. Contract services, I went up 1,500 on that, just because my contract services seems to be where I get hit the worst. The contract goes up each year. I'll kind of keep that out if you want to look at it. Office supplies, I raised that one by, it was 3,000 last year. I would like to go to 20 or 52 this year. That would give me enough money to buy 2 computers each year. All of the computers in the office, I've got some that haven't been done since 2006, so they're 13 years old. We were trying to replace 2 a year. That would get us through the office once every one person would get one every 3 years. So I just, if it's possible, that's, I'd like to bump that up to 5,200. Let's see, my postage and box rate, I decreased that one by 1,500. I didn't use that much postage, so that could cover part of those computers. Most of the other, let's see, repair and maintenance, I changed this from 5,000 to 2,000. I had another, our plat scanner in the back room. We've had trouble with that thing since we owned it. It's never worked very well for us. Todd Case at Copier Doctors has one that he can sell us for. It would be $4,095. I have that money in my record preservation fund, but I included it on the budget just so you could see that I was planning on spending that much. But I would just do a journal to transfer that money out of my budget preservation and pay for the machine that way. But for the most part, I kept everything about the same as it was last year. The only places I raised were places where, like publicity, let's see, what's this, printing and duplication. I fell a little behind on that. I raised that $250. Publicity and subscription, last year I had it at 1,900. This year I put it at 2,500. Just little phrases like that, nothing huge. The biggest changes I had were like this one, I said the 4,000, I have the money in record preservation for that. The voting machines were really the biggest one, and this is a quote that I got for the computers from DIS. They're $1,000 each, and they want, it would cost about $510 to, that's for 3 of them, so probably close to $220 to get him to come in and set them up and transfer all our old data from the old computers to the new ones. But I tried to keep it as close to last year as I could. It's just there's a couple areas where it seems like postage is costing more and maintenance is costing more, and we've been cutting them for the last couple of years, and I've cut about as far as I can go.
Yeah. One thing I'm just thinking, Doug, if you could fill out the revenue and then maybe either get us copies or send it electronically,
Okay.
and that way we can get a copy to Debbie too.
Yeah, and the revenue, I was looking at our motor vehicle. I think it's up about 93,000 from last year.
Oh,
Our clerk and recorder, I estimated last year 56,000, and right now we've got about 43. I don't think we're gonna make that one. Taxes, we've collected, the last report I ran, which was in May, it shows that we've collected 60% of our real estate taxes. So that's not showing, this is our biggest month, and it's not showing most of those on there. And so I think that one will probably come in pretty well, but,
last day of May is the deadline, right?
right.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry I didn't have this ready. I was waiting on a customer and got pulled away from it. And
So do you have your
We're
request for
funded.
delinquent mobile home taxes too?
What's that?
You do the request for delinquent motor home property taxes?
Oh, yeah, was that for today? I have that up on my desk. I can run and get it
Yeah.
up, but, okay. Right. That's one thing with mobile homes, on our taxes, there was a new law that was passed this year that, just shooting off the top of my head, so I could be totally wrong on the values. I think if they were valued at under 10,000, they would be exempt from taxes. They'd still have to pay their
Property.
solid waste and soil and things that they call fees and not a tax, but they wouldn't have to pay their main tax on a mobile home, so that's a lot of mobiles that we're probably gonna be left with not much but solid waste and TV district and soil, maybe mosquito.
And so the rest of the taxpayers in a given county will pick up that slack for them. All right,
Give me about 2 minutes and I'll be back with a
thanks
mobile
Doug.
home. I thought you just wanted this, sorry. I didn't think she had me on the agenda for this one yet. I must not have got a new agenda, but
So for my benefit, Doug, tell me why we do this.
what's that?
So for my benefit, tell me why we do this.
Personal property, which is machinery, cattle, stuff like that, and mobile homes are under a different Montana code than real estate is. So if the taxes go delinquent, once they're 5 years delinquent, then the county has to write them off. They're no longer collectible. The only way for us to collect on taxes that are mobile home or personal property would be to, my office would write a writ of execution and tell them their taxes were delinquent. And unfortunately, most of the work after that falls on the sheriff's office. And in the past, we've always with the sheriff's office has kind of been struggling with their budget and everything, and so instead of adding anything to them, we've just been writing off what the amount of these are. Most of them on the mobile homes to collect the taxes is probably, to be honest with you, is probably gonna be cost the county more than they're gonna recoup, just because of the years of the mobile homes and the conditions of them.
So do you think are people living in these mobile homes?
Most of them, I think they probably are. Mobile homes are one of the hardest things for the Department of Revenue to track, I think. People move them without moving declarations, and if they're 76 or older, when you sell them, they no longer give titles for them, so they're just sold with a bill of sale. And if people don't bring the bill of sale in, then the chain of ownership gets lost. And if the mobile gets moved, it's hard to find out where it went, who's owning it. I think a lot of these probably, that's not the case. I don't think they're probably moved, but I think it's hard to keep track of. I got a copy. This is a mobile home.
Thank you.
And the last page will give you a total of what the mobiles are. It's $13,024. That would be for the tax year of 2013. And I kinda did a quick tape just to see what those charges were. $6,000 of that 13 is for solid waste. So the taxes that you would be writing off, the actual tax is probably closer to about 7,000.
So do we still collect the solid waste? Does that still get collected then or not?
No, once these bills are 5 years old or older, they're no longer collectible. Well, once they're delinquent for more than 5 years. Montana code says you can't collect them.
So will
So,
these people be getting the solid waste permit then or not?
I guess that's something we could look into. I think, well, I know I've got one on my desk right now that's a mobile, hasn't been paid for the last 9 years that I know of. That no one's lived in it, it's just sitting on somebody else's property. He's coming in to get a moving declaration to move it this week. And then that'll be written off the books. There's a few of those like that on here that are just out there, nobody's living in them. They still get a solid waste bill. Because I think it was 2 years ago, Department of Revenue and that Solid Waste Board decided to put solid waste on all mobiles. I would really like to see that put on the land instead of the mobiles. I think it would make people more responsible. Even if it's a trailer court, if they're collecting rent from these mobile homes, collect it a little bit more for the solid waste. If they have a mobile home that moves out or isn't occupied, they're gonna let us know instead of paying the $185 a year. The people that live in these, if they're, if they're not paying, and they're not gonna care until we either start writing the writs and having and once I write a writ of execution and send it to the mobile home owners, then it becomes the sheriff's office responsibility to collect the fees. They no longer even pay me, they pay the deputies, and the deputy keeps track of the money and brings it. It's pretty labor intensive for the sheriff's office.
Might bring up a good point on solid waste permit.
Right, that might be one way to.
They should not get one. If they're not paying, they don't get one.
And I can write reports to show, who hasn't paid and give that to Mary. That's a possibility.
Yeah, so I guess my
Yeah.
question is, during this 5 years of delinquency, what's being done to try to collect it? I mean, before we get to this point where we say we're gonna forgive it.
They get their bill each year and they get
I
delinquent.
mean, if I don't
notice.
pay my taxes, who's gonna come knocking on my door saying, Dale, you're not paying your taxes?
On a mobile home, probably nobody.
Doug, can you fill in discussions we've had in the past about some of the larger counties? Lewis and Clark is one of them that actually did
Lewis and Clark
pursue.
has a deputy that this is his job, is to collect the mobile home taxes. That's all he does. And he's got a couple other people helping him now, but he stays busy year long, just collecting taxes. And what what he'll actually do is talk to the mobile home owners. I've talked to him a couple times. He's went as far as if they've gotten new windows for the mobile home and the old ones are still sitting there, he'll have them change the windows out and take the new ones back and pay the, I mean, he gets pretty inventive with some of the ways that he collects his money, but, like I said, it keeps him, that's his only job.
Sure.
Yeah, if they don't pay, the one, the one that would come knocking on their door would be the sheriff or one of his deputies after we write the writ. I don't know if, it's labor intensive and cost effective to have our deputies running around collecting mobile home taxes. A lot of these, well, like I said, $6,000 of this is solid waste.
Yeah.
So the actual tax that you're collecting on a lot of these is $40, $50 a year. I mean, most of these are older. A lot of them, when you start reading the descriptions on these mobile homes, a lot of them don't even give the serial number, the title number. They just, the record of ownership just hasn't been kept up like it would on real estate.
It should be tied to the property. That's something that has to be done at the state level.
To tie the mobile home to the
Or
property.
tie this tax to the property rather than the mobile home.
The
You just
solid
mentioned-
waste tax,
Yeah.
that would be between Department of Revenue and Mary and her solid waste board. It was just, I think, 2 years ago that they changed it. It used to be tied to the real estate. And I guess there was enough people that didn't own the land but owned the mobile that they decided to change it and start putting the solid waste on the mobile homes.
And it could be that that decision was made with information we aren't privy to right now, or it could be that it was an error in making that decision, that perhaps they didn't have this information to make that a decision. So it would be something that I think we should at least bring to them so that they can evaluate it and then move forward.
Yeah, just my personal opinion, that I think it should be on the land, even if they're renting their land out to a mobile, if the person that lives in that mobile takes off and abandons it, they're gonna move a lot sooner than 9 years to get it taken off their property and let us know that it's no longer there. I mean, you know, a lot of these, if you go out and try and collect them, you're gonna find different owners and different addresses, and if you can even find it.
Well, and the other thing that we're gonna find is some of these are not inhabitable. So they are a place that brings in skunks and other vermin, or they've been abandoned. Well, who ends up picking up the tab for that then? The rest of the citizens of the county eventually. So doing something to try and stave this off would be smart. We've brainstormed a couple of things in the past, and it is what it is.
Yeah. They're not just a problem in our county, they're a problem in almost every county.
I'm sure they are. So you guys, Brandon, have you guys ever done any of this before? I mean, what kind of success did you have doing it?
I've never done
I
any of
don't-
this. We've done writs before, but this, I think Lewis and Clark County, they have one deputy assigned to it, and then he has, I think it's 2 or 3 people that assist him. Obviously, a much bigger county.
Right.
But, you know, it's what we're talked about, we're struggling to keep up with casework, so is it worth to add a position to our office for $13,000? And, I mean, I understand the solid waste is missing, but I can't take somebody right now in the training that it requires and do it the correct way to do it. I guess it's a decision for
And if it's
you guys to make. It's not fair, that's for sure, for people just to get away with it, but it is a tedious process. I can't remember his name, the deputy, I've called him before on some of this stuff and some civil process, and he goes to quite a bit of training and is very knowledgeable on it, and it would take somebody to be dedicated to that.
Maybe we can contract them for
Mr.
a couple of
Chairman,
months or something.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
as far as I know, the last time anything was done with the county is when Judy Gillespie was clerk and recorder, and she and Ben Naff worked together on that. I don't know, I know that they brought in some, I don't know, I don't know how successful it was, but it was that, I think that was the only year it was ever done.
And they got far enough to produce some of the writs and send them out, but then there's that bright
Yeah.
orange or lime green sticker, you sticker the mobiles, and that's where
And,
it all kind of fell down, and
I do think it got some people to pay their taxes. I remember one lady coming in and said, well, if you wanted me to pay, why didn't you say so? And I thought, what did you think the bills were?
Right.
yeah, it's just, the other thing to think of is if you start stickering these and sending the sheriff's office out to collect them, and you find out they're uninhabitable or unlivable or been abandoned, or even if people are still living in them and they shouldn't be, then it becomes the county's responsibility to take that mobile and do something with it, which I would think probably most of them you would haul off to be destroyed. Or you would have to try and have an auction to get rid of them. That's not gonna be a moneymaker. I think that's why it's kind of been dragging along the way it is. I mean, to try and get the personnel to go out there and do this for $13,000 a year.
Yeah. I mean, I get it, I understand that point, but I just, for some reason, during this 5-year period when they're becoming delinquent, surely there should be something going on.
Yeah, well, we get more mobile home bills back because of insufficient address than we do real estate, and we send out far more real estate bills than we do mobile home. They just don't get tracked like they should. If I have a mobile home that's a 76 or older and I sell it to you, I give you a bill of sale, you take the bill of sale and go your happy way, and don't let anybody here know that you bought this mobile. Then the bill's going to the wrong person, to the wrong address.
Sure.
So really the only way to figure out who's living there is to go knock on the door and,
So is it too late to address the solid waste issue? Have those been sent yet?
For this year, yeah. For the next,
I think they're going out
Next
today.
grouping.
Debbie was running them through the machine.
Those are the permits, though. Wasn't
What's
the tax-
that?
This is the permits. It wasn't the taxes.
No, this.
Yeah, but the permits, the
Yeah,
permits are
we're
tied to the
working on it.
delinquent
They're not all done
taxes.
yet.
All right.
yeah, it's a tough call. I mean,
Okay.
even if you sent somebody out, even if you collected half the taxes that are due, you're talking $6,000 for, I don't know how many man hours it would take
To locate it,
right?
mostly just to locate it would be
Right.
a major. Yes, Tim?
Just real quick question, Mr. Chairman. This has been, as been stated, going back quite a few years, every fiscal year this comes up at budget time. I guess the question that I'd like to ask is, these numbers of delinquent taxes on these types of situations holding steady? Because it seems to me we're forgiving these every year, but yet they're seem to be keep coming back every year. And with our county, I mean, how far do we go before we got them all taken care of? I mean, it's going clear back to when Ben Knapp was here. We've been writing off delinquent taxes, and yet here we are again this year with 13,000 on the table. It seems to me they should be going down because old trailers don't grow out of the weeds, do they?
Evidently.
No, and it does go
I'm-
down the next year.
It's foggy in the weeds, I guess, so that's why I asked the question, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, the value of the mobile goes down each year, so the tax will decrease, and next year with this new law, it should go down, I would think considerably.
Sure.
And it's the same thing, this is a personal property,
Thank you.
this one amounts to $1,900, $3.14, and, most of this is either cattle or farm equipment or equipment that a business might have to operate, so there's not a lot of people on this report. But again, the only way to address these would be to the same way that you would deal with the mobile homes. And this one has went down significantly in the last 2 or 3 years.
Do we have any idea of determining what these things actually are?
I think to determine that, I would have to get a hold of the Department of Revenue and see, because see what they have on their, computer system, because the description that they give on the tax bills is pretty vague. It doesn't really give you much to go by.
Do they not allow you to attach this to property taxes?
No, these are different than real estate. These are taxes that the business or the person has to fill out a form each year, send to the Department of Revenue to tell them how much cattle they got, how much machinery they have, how old it is.
So this one for Tri-Rivers Corporation, that could be heavy equipment that they no longer own, but
Right.
nobody ever told anybody they didn't own it anymore.
Right,
Same with all the rest of these.
yeah. Yeah, and again, on these, the only way to collect them if they don't pay is to send them a writ of execution and have the sheriff's office go out and do a visit and see if they still have the equipment or what they have that we can attach to recoup some of the losses. I think if we were to put the solid waste fee on the land instead of the mobile home, it would cut our mobiles by almost half.
Can we do that, or is that was a legislative action that changed?
No, that's the ones that decided to change that were the Solid Waste Board and the Department of Revenue. Had a meeting and that was their decision.
So those fees, like the Mountain View Trailer Court, those would all become the responsibility of each lot of the trailer court would get charged
Right.
a solid waste fee.
Right. And that would make the owners of the trailer court responsible to let the Department of Revenue know how many trailers they had in there, and if there were, we've got one out at Mountain View right now that I've had a couple of calls from a lawyer that trailer court is trying to get it moved out. Right now, they're to the point where they're talking about doing the destruction of the mobile home on site instead of moving it. And it's on this list for 5-year back taxes. So they can't move it until the taxes are paid, so they're just gonna tear it down and haul it out in pieces.
So if you did attach this to the land and all of these, how would you go about collecting these solid waste fees?
They would go out with the real estate bills.
With the property tax bill?
Right. And those people are a little more apt to pay those because they can, if those go delinquent, people can do a tax lien and the tax deed and end up owning the land if they do it right. So, they don't wanna lose their land, they'll pay their taxes.
So if these mobile homes on here, if they're still being inhabited, then they basically have used solid waste for free for 5 years.
Right. Yeah, that's a discussion that probably should be had with Mary and Department of Revenue. I mean, even if you did nothing but put a couple of big canisters out at the mobile home court and charged them so much a month to take their canisters away, I think you'd be ahead of the game.
All right, well,